Okay then, in this video we'll talk about Amazon S3, which stands for Simple Storage Service. So let's start exploring what this service is. Well, Amazon S3 is storage for the internet. In other words, you can use this service to store and retrieve any amount of data at any time from anywhere on the web. That means it's a service by AWS which allows you to store and retrieve unlimited amounts of data. So let's get to know this Amazon S3 better. In S3, all files are stored as objects. You can store any kind of file like text files, images, videos, 3D models, and etc. Alright? So this is a representation of the object. So as you can see, objects mainly consist of three components, so which are the key, metadata, and data. So there might be some other additional components, but for now let's consider only these three main components. So the first one is the key, which is the name of the object, right? So the second one is metadata, which is a description of the object. In other words, it describes the objects, or you can understand it as additional information about your object. It can be the size of the object, creation date of the object, etc., etc. Then the third one is data, and definitely this one is your files like images, video, text, etc. All right. So now let's understand how this works in Amazon S3. So in Amazon S3, if you want to use S3, the first thing that you need to do is you need to create a bucket. All right. And so what is a bucket in S3? So a bucket in S3 is a container for your objects. In other words, you put your objects into a bucket. So you create a bucket. And then when you create a bucket, you should give it a name. And that name must be unique across all existing bucket names in Amazon S3. So that means you should give it a globally unique name. So because when you create a bucket, you can specify a region, right? So it should not be just unique in that region. In other words, it should be globally unique, right? So now once you create that one, you can start uploading your files, or in other words, your objects. So we have seen how objects look like. So and once you upload your objects into S3 bucket, so you can retrieve them. All right. So it's very easy to use. For that, if you want to use S3, there is a console available, which is called S3 console. So you don't have to program or anything. It provides you a user interface. So now let's summarize information about Amazon S3. So first of all, Amazon S3 is storage for the internet, so which allows you to store and retrieve any amount of data at any time from anywhere on the web. So the second thing is Amazon S3 stores data as objects within buckets. So that means first of all you need to create a bucket. And once you create a bucket, you can start uploading objects into that bucket. And buckets are containers for objects. So then the third point is objects consist of the key, metadata, and data. And again, objects can include additional components. For instance, version ID. So it can include version ID, which is very important. Why it is important? Because sometimes you might have multiple versions of the same file. Then you can switch on the version control of the S3. Then it can start keeping track of your files. So that means when you upload the same multiple versions of the same file, it just creates version ID. All right, and it can include that one. I mean that part, that version ID might be included in the objects as well. So then objects can also include access control information, which defines access to your objects. So, but again, those parts or those components are not very important right now. For now, you should understand that objects consist of the key, metadata, and data. Three things, all right? So then permissions can be set on the object and metadata level. So that means you can provide permissions on the object and metadata level. So it's very easy to understand. So then Amazon S3 has a simple user interface that you can use to store and retrieve your data. And that interface is called Amazon S3 console. So which we will see later on. All right. So then next point is region. A region can be set for the Amazon S3. So that means when you create a bucket, you should specify a region. So once you specify a region, your objects and buckets will be in that region. All right. So then costs will incur for storing objects in the bucket and for transferring objects in and out of the bucket. So that means once you create a bucket, you can start uploading objects, right? So you will pay for storing objects plus for transferring objects in and out of the bucket. So that means in means uploading and out means retrieving or downloading. All right. So, and also you are not charged for creating a bucket. So if you just create a bucket, you will not be charged for that bucket, but you will be charged for storing objects in the bucket and for transferring objects in and out of the bucket. So this was a high-level overview of the Amazon S3, and that's it for this video, and we will continue in the next one.